Hi everyone, my name is Amisha Bahardwaj, and today I'll be doing a presentation over academic burnout in adults. So, what is academic burnout? So, burnout is defined as a state of psychological distress, which is widely considered an important work and school related syndrome. More and more attention are recently paid to college students, among which could also be affected by burnout. Learning burnout is defined as a combination of emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and academic efficiency due to their failure in meeting academic requirements. And also, academic burnout involves the student's perception of themselves and also others, such as their classmates and teachers. There's three main reasons why academic burnout is important. The first reason is because it influences the student's academic performance. Second reason is why it affects the interaction between students and faculty members and also others around them. And third, it can reduce a student's interest towards their education. A significant proportion of students suffer from academic burnout problems, and the main reason is because of the high expectations of society, including their family and teachers, regarding their academic performance and achievement compared to their peers. The increased burnout in students has been shown to affect academic performance, mental health, and quality of life of graduate and undergraduate students. Burnout can have a negative effect on mental health, empathy, and also professional conduct of the students, which can affect their relationship with their teachers and also other classmates. Academic burnout can come from different reasons, including class demands, the teacher's behavior towards them, and also extracurricular activities. In this study, the prevalence and effect of burnout on graduate students aimed to find the effect on the psychological, professional, empathetic ability, and academic acuity of graduate healthcare students. The domains of policymaking and curriculum were looked at how it was affected by burnout to see how administration could prepare students to not only understand and recognize burnout, but also help students to decrease it. A scoping review was performed in the study in order to understand literature and identify any research gaps to recognize study populations and how burnout affected the graduate students. The study found a high correlation between stress and burnout, and additionally, the study also showed that graduate medical students showed a decreased life satisfaction compared to peers of the same age but were not in education. There is also an inverse relationship between burnout and empathy and also professionalism. As students went through their curriculum, their mental health deteriorated and they experienced higher levels of dissatisfaction. A decline in mental health and burnout can be mitigated by using effective and healthy coping mechanisms such as physical activity, extracurricular activities, peer and support networks, and also professional counseling by seeing a therapist. Although many of these services are available in larger academic institutions, they are often underutilized by the graduate student population due to stigma and also there might be a cost. The study recommends that university programs should stress the importance of healthy social networks, activities, and other coping mechanisms, and further research is suggested in order to investigate the benefit of various coping methods, including exercise, mentorship, and pre professional counseling services. The previous study talked about how burnout can affect graduate students, but also in this study called "What Types of Educational Practices Impact School Burnout Levels in Adolescents," seems to say that if burnout is mitigated during adolescence in elementary primary schools, there is a less chance that one will develop burnout as a graduate student. Schools are very important for the lives of adolescents as they are one of the first places where they learn how to socialize and also develop. They spend a lot of time in school where the main activity can be likened to a job where one has to fulfill a certain number of requirements. The demands associated with school contribute to intellectual and also socio emotional development as they have both structure and gratification. It was found that the risk of burnout was lower in schools where students felt like they could find help among teachers and also counselors. For cases of high burnout, it showed that students felt like they had a lack of control and lack of reward for their contributions in class. The study suggested that the level of exhaustion lowered and the productivity of the students increased when they felt like they could benefit from support in case of academic and personal difficulties by seeking help from a teacher and counselor. And the results showed that the teacher's instructional behavior also influenced cynicism. This meant that students were less likely to develop a cynical attitude toward school when they thought that their teachers were trying to motivate them, and they valued their efforts made in class, and they made sure that they understood one subject before moving on to the next. And a lower level of cynicism towards education meant that they would have a lower level of burnout. This should be kept in mind when it comes to strengthening the protective role of schools and teachers against school burnout in adolescents. A study titled Academic Burnout as an Educational Complication and Promotion Barrier Among Undergraduate Students, a cross-sectional study. The researchers aimed to explore the incidence of academic burnout status and also the factors which were associated with it. The findings indicated that marital status, GPA, and time of study were significantly associated with academic burnout in students. Since the burnout falls along a spectrum, there were no specific threshold values to distinguish when a person became burned out. So, married students showed a lower score of academic burnout than the single ones. This was due to the married students having more purposeful lives, a better time planning, and also more motivation to continue to complete their education to help their family. And it's been suggested that there's a reciprocal relationship between academic burnout and GPA. When students felt disappointed and miserable due to academic burnout, they showed less interest to perform in class activities, and this led to the academic burnout making them be less present in class and decrease their GPA. Increasing GPA in students could prevent academic burnout. And it also was reported in the study that students with a higher GPA had more self confidence to excel in their classes. And also, the time of study showed an association with academic burnout. So, students who waited until the last days of the semester to studies closer to exam time presented higher academic burnout than those who used to study during the semester. This study urged policymakers to create and implement more effective educational programs considering the factors associated with academic burnout. Considering that academic burnout is so prevalent in graduate and medical students, it is important to make sure that the mental and physical health of these students are always in well being and burnout is kept to a minimum. And so it's important to implement prevention programs and better management of educational plans, which we can urge the policymakers to do. As spoken about previously, it was learned that social groups can help prevent academic burnout. So, in this study, Learning Burnout, evaluating the role in social support in medical students, a mass-like burnout inventory assessed learning burnout and the social support rating system scale to assess social support. After an online survey in this study, it showed that there was a high prevalence of learning burnout as the learning switched to an online format during the COVID-19 pandemic period. The students' grades and family income were closely related with learning burnout. Social support, especially using support, it provided a protective effect against stress faced by medical students and decreased the possibility of developing learning burnout. Good social support from family and friends and other organizational factors, such as good feedback and leadership, were correlated with low levels of burnout in study environments. This study urged for further research in order to identify other mechanisms of social support in order to relieve burnout in medical students and graduate students, considering the harmfulness of learning burnout. An alternative approach was taken in the study titled Burnout, Quality of Life, Motivation, and Academic Achievement Among Medical Students, a Personal-Oriented Approach. In this person-oriented approach, the individual student was seen as a functioning totality and not just isolated variables, as seen in other studies. The study found that medical students displayed different profiles of burnout and quality of life that were associated with differences in academic motivation and progress test scores over time. Students with lower burnout and higher quality of life had optimal academic motivation with higher intrinsic motivation and also self-efficacy. Higher burnout, lower quality of life students had the least desirable type of academic motivation, and they also had lower self-efficacy and test anxiety. This study was the first in its kind as it was a personal-oriented approach which classified students accordingly to burnout and their quality of life profiles. By using a personal-oriented approach, this could help with customizing support activities for students within each different profile. By identifying burnout and quality of life, students could determine their association with academic motivation and achievement on progress tests by using a personal oriented approach. So they themselves could identify that they were experiencing burnout in order to help themselves if they were too scared to reach out to their teachers, faculties, or other advisors. So, to summarize this presentation about burnout in adults, burnout is an emotional and physical exhaustion resulting from a combination of exposures to different environmental factors and internal stressors, as well as inadequate coping and adaptive skills. Administrators could help students to understand and recognize burnout, but also help them by providing them opportunities to decrease it. Burnout can begin in a student's life during primary and secondary school, and studies found that some teacher and school related educational practices were negatively affecting them and also increased their burnout while at a young age. Social support could reduce burnout by communicating with relatives or friends regarding their issues and also give them another support system to help them organize their study methods. And here are my 5 references.